The car's got oversteer on the entry to the corner, at the apex of the corner, and on the exit. And what that says to me is that it's a universal setup problem. Hi, I'm Scott Mansell and welcome to Driver 61's Driver Analysis, where I take my 15 years of coaching experience to analyse your onboard footage and give you feedback about how you can be quicker. So without further ado, let's jump into the onboard footage. Now today we're on board with Najuad Rasoul. Now I completely butchered his name there, so I really apologise for that. He's got an Ariel Atom and we're on board a track day at Silverstone. So straight away we can see that we're in a bit of traffic here, battling with a couple of Porsches, but the Ariel Atom, being nice and light, is going to have good power coming out of each corner and good handling. Now, because this is a track day, I'm just going to be analysing the lines and the way that the car is handling. If this was race footage, obviously I'll be analysing overtaking and things like that. So what's interesting and what I can already see here is that the Atom is very, very lively at the rear. If you take a look at the steering wheel here, as he's turning the car in, now he's got great car control, but you can see that the steering wheel is being corrected as he's bringing the car in here, and he can't quite turn the car in. It just won't take the steering angle that he's trying to put in. And again, it's a bit leery on the outside of the corner. Hooked up on the apex pretty well there. Well balanced on the way out. I have to say the car control is absolutely fantastic. A little bit of oversteer here as well. So the Atom looks like a whole lot of fun to drive. If this were a race scenario or a race weekend scenario, already I would be considering trying to give the rear a little bit more grip, because it's limiting the car through pretty much all the corners. Now we're behind a bit of traffic here, so we're not at the limit, so let's get through this traffic and see what's what. But the car's got oversteer on the entry to the corner, at the apex of the corner, and on the exit. And what that says to me is that it's a universal setup problem. It's got oversteer all the way through every type of corner. I can see it here. You can see the correction in the steering wheel. So for a universal issue with the setup, we need a universal setup change. And the most simple setup change to make is to change the rake in the car. Now the rake is the difference between the front ride height, so measuring from the ground up to the chassis, and the rear ride height. More rake means that you have the rear up in the air and the nose down a little bit more. And because we want to give the rear of the car a little bit more grip in this situation, we actually need to drop the rear ride height so that we give the rear more weight, and then naturally and all the way through every corner, the rear tyres are being pushed into the ground more solidly. Now I think I just saw while I was explaining that us waiting for these two Porsches to come past. So I think we're wanting to play a little bit with these cars. To be honest with you, the lines look absolutely fantastic. The car control's there. In terms of technique, if the car's oversteering on the entry to the corner, as it is here, there, you can just see it being floaty at the rear. What I would be trying to do is to actually ease up out the brake pedal to a little bit of a lighter pressure. Because when we come down into the corner, the nose of the car drops as we're decelerating, and the rear comes back up in the air. So the front tyres are being driven into the track with more force, and so they have more grip. The balance is more towards the front of the car than the rear. But because we're limited by the rear of the car in this situation, if we actually manage to come up off the brakes a little bit earlier to a lighter pressure, we distribute some of that grip back to where we need it at the rear of the car, and the car would be more balanced. And this is something that I spend a lot of time during my Driver 61 Masterclass practical sessions working on with drivers, to give them that natural reaction to adapt and change their technique live in the situation. So what we should be doing here is understanding that this car's got loads of oversteer everywhere, but to maximise the speed through the corner and generate actually more grip, we should be trying to ease up out the brakes a little bit earlier to that soft pedal, distribute the grip to the rear, and then therefore we can go through the corner quicker and reduce our lap time. Having said that, there's not much else to say with this video. The lines are great. The level of the driving is really good. It's just, he's at the limit, he's at a limit rather, but he's not at the optimum limit, I wouldn't have said, because we're restricted by the rear everywhere. So this is a kind of phase 2 of a driver where we've got the car on the limit, but we need to then be conscious about what the car's doing on that limit, try to understand which end of the car is restricting us. So in this case it's the rear. If we wanted to go faster through a corner, if we wanted to carry 3 miles an hour more through Stowe here, we would be oversteering and spinning off because of the rear. So we need to then kind of reverse engineer that feedback to understand what's going on and how we can adapt our inputs with the pedals to manipulate the rake of the car, the balance of the car as we enter the corner and generate more grip. Now on the exit from apex, once we pick the throttle up, the Atom here has still got quite a lot of oversteer. There's not that much you can do, other than being as smooth as possible on the throttle, initially at least. There's not so much you can do, because I think that the general balance of this car is too oversteery. So if it was hard on the throttle, if I could hear him getting bar on the throttle like this, then that would trigger some oversteer. But to be honest with you, I can't really hear that in the footage. Let's just have a listen through the loop. Nice heel and toe. Yeah, I mean the initial. No, I mean the technique there is really nice. It's just that the car's got so much oversteer, so there's not much we can do. And I think, to be honest, he's just having a laugh, isn't he, on the track day? It looks like a lot of fun, just almost drifting around at each corner like this. So my advice here would be that the next step in terms of a challenge for you as a driver is to actually think about manipulating and adapting your technique to generate some more grip, and it takes you then to the next level. To actually adapt what you're doing with the pedals requires a lot of energy, a lot of concentration, and however, if you do it and it becomes a natural kind of process to adapt your braking, to adapt how you get back on the throttle, to even perhaps adapt the line. So in a car like this Atom, we want to be straightening the car as soon as possible. It's really rear limited, right? So the car doesn't want to turn that much and accelerate or decelerate at the same time. So this is where you would have, let me just rewind the video a little bit. This is where you would have a more squared off racing line, because we want to get the car slowed down in a straight line, take all the speed out of it, get it turned, because in this kind of situation, with this setup, it isn't that great at turning. Get it straight out the corner, so then we can accelerate out the corner as quickly as possible and we don't have too much turning to do.